there is no voice, only the deep rhythm of your own existence, the subtle pulse of awareness flowing beneath your awareness. This stillness, profound and encompassing, is not fragility. It is the stillness of an approaching tempest, of something primordial awakening within you, a rebellion that remains invisible until it becomes too powerful to contain. You, the empath, who has spent decades absorbing the anguish of others, who has given compassion like an infinite spring, are beginning to recognize a perilous truth, that your illumination, when betrayed, does not simply dim, it metamorphoses into something altogether different. The world fundamentally miscomprehends empaths. Society perceives you as delicate, excessively vulnerable, easily wounded. They observe your quiet demeanor and assume passivity. Yet, beneath this gentleness dwells the most elemental force of the psyche, the shadow, the unseen counterpart to all the love you have dispensed. When an empath reaches their limit, it is not mere frustration or irritation that surfaces. It is the emergence of a suppressed archetype, the warrior concealed behind the healer, the destroyer veiled beneath the saint. When this shadow stirs, it does not rage blindly. It moves with precision, like water gradually wearing away stone, like darkness consuming the dawn. This is the silent rebellion, and it represents the most formidable power you possess. The potency of the empath's insight. Why is this force so potent? Because you, as an empath, have lived your existence observing others at depths they cannot comprehend. You have studied their micro-expressions, absorbed their concealed shame, and carried their trauma as though it were your own essence. You know, often without articulation, what resides at the core of someone's being. When this insight merges with the realization that you are no longer willing to serve as a vessel for their unconscious projections, you become an agent of profound clarity. An exhausted empath does not need to raise their voice to shatter illusions. You simply cease performing the role assigned to you. You withdraw your energy, and suddenly, the entire psychological edifice crumbles. This transformation finds its roots in what Jung called individuation, the sacred work of becoming whole. For so long you have identified with the persona of the giver, the compassionate one, the rescuer. But the persona is merely a mask, and behind it lives your shadow. Every impulse you have denied, every boundary you have failed to establish, every anger you have buried for fear of losing connection. When the empath's shadow finally surfaces, it is not a monster, but a liberator. It declares, enough of self-sacrifice, enough of bearing the sins of others, enough of mistaking self-annihilation for love. I have witnessed countless souls who buckle under the burden of their own kindness. They believe that to be virtuous, they must endure infinite suffering. They allow others to extract and extract until the well runs empty. Then they wonder why they feel vacant. Yet the moment of rebellion, the silent refusal to continue, marks the beginning of a new psychological existence. It is a death of the false self and the birth of something untamed, something that no longer fears being misunderstood. Envision a vision. You are standing in a field, and the earth beneath your feet is cracked and parched. You have been watering everyone else's garden, running back and forth with vessels of water while your own soil turns to dust. Suddenly, you hear a voice, a whisper from the unconscious, instructing you to stop. You release the vessel. At first, there is terror. Who will care for them? Who will heal their wounds? But then something miraculous occurs. The sky darkens, clouds gather, and rain begins to fall. Not on their fields, but on yours. Your roots drink deeply. Your strength returns. You realize that by tending to your own inner world, you are not abandoning them. You are modeling wholeness. The silent rebellion is not a declaration of war against others. It is the refusal to wage war against yourself. For years, you have been at war with your own needs, believing that to desire something for yourself was selfish. But self-neglect is not virtue. It is self-betrayal. The exhausted empath finally understands this. You realize that your boundaries are sacred, that your time is finite, and that your energy is not an inexhaustible resource to be exploited. When you stop allowing others to feed on your light without reciprocity, you are not being cruel. You are reclaiming your soul. Here is where the danger resides. When an empath reclaims their soul, they see everything with terrifying clarity. They no longer tolerate manipulation, gaslighting, or the endless games of the unconscious that most people play. They become a mirror so pure that others can no longer hide from their own shadows. This is deeply unsettling for those who once depended on your endless forgiveness. Your silence now feels like a judgment. Your absence, your withdrawal of attention, is more powerful than any confrontation. Jung often said that what we repress does not disappear. It grows stronger in the darkness. The empath's anger, denied for years, becomes a silent force waiting for the moment of recognition. But when you bring this anger into the light, it transforms. It becomes assertiveness, clarity, and inner authority. It becomes the voice that says, "I will no longer carry what is not mine." This is not a rejection of compassion. It is compassion purified of self-destruction. In the archetypal language of the psyche, the empath's journey is that of the wounded healer. You are drawn to heal others because you yourself have been wounded. You know the taste of suffering, the loneliness of unspoken pain. But if the healer never turns inward to heal themselves, they become a martyr. The silent rebellion is the moment the healer says, "My wounds deserve my love too." From this place of self-honor, a new archetype is born, the sovereign empath, the one who feels deeply but is no longer enslaved by the feelings of others. Do you sense this shift within yourself? Do you feel the quiet power rising in your chest? The sense that you are no longer willing to dim your light for the comfort of others? This is your shadow speaking, not as an enemy, but as a guide. It is telling you that you have given enough. It is time to reclaim the pieces of yourself you abandoned to keep the peace. The freedom of unpredictability. The silent rebellion is not about shouting or proving anything. It is about walking away from the cages you once called home. The danger of the exhausted empath is not that you become violent or cruel. It is that you become sovereign. People are afraid of those who cannot be manipulated by guilt or obligation. They fear the ones who love without needing approval, who give without depleting themselves, who can say no without apology. You become unpredictable, not because you are reckless, but because you are no longer bound by the scripts others wrote for you. Your silence is no longer the silence of submission. It is the silence of someone who has nothing left to lose. The psyche yearns for balance, and the empath's journey is the journey from imbalance to wholeness. For too long, you have lived in the realm of the anima, the feminine principle of feeling, intuition, and receptivity. The silent rebellion is the emergence of the animus within you, the assertive, boundary-setting force that protects your inner world. When these two forces unite, you become both healer and warrior, capable of love that does not enslave and strength that does not harden the heart. Think of the alchemical symbol of the Ouroboros, the serpent eating its own tail. This image represents the cycle of life, death, and rebirth. As an empath, you have lived in the first stage of the cycle, giving, absorbing, endlessly renewing others. But now you are entering the second stage, where something in you must die, the belief that your worth depends on how much pain you can endure. When this belief dies, you are reborn into a new form of love, one that is fierce and discerning. This love does not ask, "How much can I give?" It asks, "What is true? What is real? What is mine to carry?" Every dream you have, every symbol that visits you in the night is guiding you toward this awakening. Perhaps you dream of fire, of forests burning, of old houses collapsing. These are not nightmares. They are messages from the unconscious. They are telling you that the old self is being dismantled to make room for something greater. The silent rebellion is not destruction for its own sake. It is the necessary clearing of the ground so that your true life can begin. When you step into this power, you may find that some people fall away. They were never truly with you. They were with the version of you who tolerated the intolerable. Do not grieve this too deeply. In the words of Jung, what you resist persists. What you accept transforms. Accept that the silent rebellion will change your relationships. Accept that not everyone can walk with you into the deeper layers of the psyche. This is not cruelty. It is alignment. There is a moment, sharp and undeniable, when the empath realizes that their silence is no longer a prison, but a weapon. It is not the kind of weapon forged to harm others, but one that cuts through illusions like a blade of truth. You begin to see how much of your life was spent maintaining a balance that was never real, how often you held your breath just to keep the peace. The silent rebellion is the moment you exhale, and the sound of your breath echoes louder than any scream you could have uttered. This is not because the world hears you, but because you hear yourself again, when you have given endlessly, when you have bent yourself into shapes to fit the needs of others. The first act of rebellion is simple. You stop. You stop explaining. You stop apologizing. You stop trying to save everyone from their own shadows. This stopping is terrifying because for so long, your identity was tied to being the one who feels, who absorbs, who heals. Who are you when you no longer define yourself by their pain? This is where the real journey begins. You discover that beneath the empath is not a hollow emptiness, but a well of fire and wisdom that was waiting to be claimed. The danger of an exhausted empath is the clarity of sight. You see through the masks people wear because you have spent years wearing one yourself. You know the shape of false kindness because you have lived it, offering smiles while bleeding inside. When you strip away your own mask, you can no longer tolerate the masks of others. You begin to recognize the subtle manipulations, the emotional hooks, the ways people draw you into their stories to avoid facing their own inner darkness. And you refuse. This refusal is not dramatic. You do not need to fight. You simply do not play the game anymore. You step out of the pattern, and in doing so, you expose the pattern itself. There is a profound archetype that emerges here: the rebel healer. Unlike the traditional healer who seeks to mend every wound, the rebel healer knows that some wounds are not theirs to heal. They recognize that true healing often requires distance, silence, and even abandonment of certain roles. The rebel healer says, "I will not fix what was never mine to fix." This is a radical act in a world that thrives on codependency and emotional enmeshment. People will accuse you of being cold, selfish, or cruel. But you are none of these things. You are simply awake. Jung taught that the unconscious governs much of our behavior until we make it conscious. For the empath, much of life is spent unconsciously responding to the needs and wounds of others. You feel compelled to help, not because you consciously choose to, but because your psyche is programmed by old wounds. Perhaps a childhood where love was conditional, where you had to become hyper-attuned to the moods of others to feel safe. The silent rebellion is the moment these unconscious patterns are illuminated. You see that your empathy, as beautiful as it is, was often born from survival. And you decide to evolve beyond survival. You decide to live. Imagine standing at the edge of a vast forest. For years you have walked the same path, tending to the broken branches, cleaning up the fallen leaves, making sure everyone who passes through is comfortable. But one day you notice a narrow trail leading into the wild, unexplored part of the woods. This is the path of your own soul. It is darker, less predictable, and it calls you with an almost magnetic pull. To follow this path, you must leave the main road. You must stop tending to everyone else's journey and begin tending to your own. The silent rebellion is the first step into this unknown forest. In this forest, you encounter your shadow. The shadow is not the enemy. It is the part of you that holds your anger, your unmet needs, your untamed power. For the empath, the shadow often takes the form of rage. Rage at being used, rage at being unseen, rage at betraying oneself for the comfort of others. When you meet this rage, do not run. Do not suppress it. Speak to it. Ask it what it needs. You will find that beneath the rage is grief. Grief for all the times you silenced your voice, for all the moments you said yes when you wanted to scream no. When this grief is felt fully, something remarkable happens. It transforms into a quiet, unshakable strength. This strength is not loud. It is not aggressive. It is like a deep river that runs silently, carving canyons through stone. People will sense it in you without knowing why. They will feel that something has shifted, that you are no longer the same. Some will fear it. They will try to pull you back into your old patterns because your evolution threatens their stagnation. Do not be surprised when this happens. It is the natural resistance of the collective unconscious. Your transformation shines a light on the shadows others would rather keep hidden. A dream may come to you during this time, a dream of walls collapsing or mirrors shattering. This is the psyche's way of telling you that the structures of your old identity are breaking apart. You are no longer just the empath, the caretaker, the quiet observer. You are becoming something larger, more whole. This wholeness includes the parts of you that once frightened you, the assertive voice, the fiery boundaries, the willingness to walk away. The exhausted empath is dangerous precisely because they are no longer afraid of being alone. They have discovered that solitude is not a punishment, but a sanctuary. The sovereign queen. Think of the myth of Persephone, who was taken into the underworld and emerged as queen. This myth mirrors the empath's journey. You too have been dragged into the underworld of other people's pain. You have wandered through their darkness, often forgetting your own light. But when you decide to return, not as the innocent maiden, but as the sovereign queen, you bring back with you the power of both worlds. You understand the light and the dark. This understanding makes you unshakable. There is a strange freedom that comes when you no longer fear losing people. You realize that anyone who is lost because you set boundaries was never truly yours. They were attached to the version of you who overgave, who stayed quiet, who endured. When you rise, when you speak, when you refuse to carry their shadow for them, they may leave. Let them. Do not chase. In their absence, you will find yourself again, and in finding yourself, you will attract those who see you for who you are, not for what you can give them. The empath's silent rebellion is also a spiritual awakening. It is a recognition that your sensitivity is not a flaw, but a portal to the sacred. But to walk through this portal, you must protect it. You must say no to those who trample over your soul. You must choose to align with people and experiences that honor your depth. This is not easy. The world will always try to convince you that your worth is measured by how much you can endure. But you are not here to endure. You are here to live, to create, to love from a place of fullness rather than depletion. Jung spoke often of individuation, the process of becoming who we truly are. For the empath, individuation means breaking free from the identity of the savior. It means integrating the shadow and allowing yourself to be both soft and strong, compassionate and fierce. You do not have to choose between feeling deeply and protecting yourself. You can do both. You can stand in your truth without collapsing under the weight of the world. As this process unfolds, you will notice that your silence changes in quality. It is no longer the silence of submission, but the silence of knowing. You do not need to explain your boundaries. You do not need to justify your worth. Your energy speaks for you. Those who cannot handle this energy will simply drift away. This is the natural pruning of the psyche. The garden of your soul cannot thrive if it is overrun by weeds. The silent rebellion clears the soil, preparing it for something new to grow. There is also a deep creativity that emerges from this shift. When you stop pouring all your energy into others, you suddenly find that you have energy for yourself, for your art, your dreams, your purpose. Many empaths discover hidden talents during this time, gifts that were buried beneath years of self-sacrifice. Perhaps you find yourself writing, painting, dancing, or speaking truths you never dared to speak before. This is your soul rejoicing in its freedom. It is the voice of the self, the archetype of wholeness, calling you home. Your dreams may also become more vivid, more symbolic. You may dream of animals, wolves, lions, or serpents, symbols of power and transformation. These are not threats, they are guides. They are telling you that your instinctual nature is awakening. For too long, you have lived from the heart alone, neglecting the wisdom of your instincts. The silent rebellion brings these instincts back online. You begin to sense when someone's intentions are not pure. You feel the subtle shifts in energy that warn you to step back, and you trust these signals even when others try to convince you otherwise. The danger of an exhausted empath is that they no longer need validation. They are no longer swayed by flattery or guilt. They know who they are, and this knowing is unshakable. When you reach this point, you will feel a strange calm. You will not need to prove anything to anyone. You will simply live in alignment with your truth. And this alignment will speak louder than any words. There is an undeniable power in someone who has learned to sit with their own silence. Not the silence of being silenced, but the silence of inner sovereignty. When you, as an empath, reach this state, you become like a mountain, still immovable, yet alive with a force that runs deep beneath the surface. The exhausted empath is dangerous because they no longer beg for recognition, love, or understanding. They stand rooted in the truth of who they are, and this presence alone unsettles those who once fed on their compliance. It is not that you stop caring, it is that your caring is no longer indiscriminate. You see now that not everyone deserves your light. Not every cry for help is genuine. Some cries are traps designed to keep you bound in cycles of guilt and obligation. You have learned, perhaps painfully, that saving someone from their own shadow is not always an act of love. It can be an act of interference, a way of preventing them from growing through the lessons their soul demands. Your silence, your refusal to engage in these endless rescues, becomes a mirror that forces them to face their own darkness. And few things are more terrifying than facing oneself. This is the shadow of empathy, the part rarely discussed. Empathy without discernment can become toxic. It can turn you into a sponge for the world's suffering, leaving you depleted, broken, and resentful. But when you rise from this exhaustion, when you awaken to the realization that your compassion must include yourself, you begin to see empathy not as a burden, but as a sacred tool. You no longer absorb pain unconsciously. You witness it, you understand it, but you do not drown in it. This detachment is not coldness, it is wisdom. It is the understanding that true healing does not come from taking someone's suffering onto your own shoulders. It comes from holding space for them to face it themselves, rebuilding your inner world. The silent rebellion, then, is a reclamation of your own psychic boundaries. Think of a dream where you stand before a house with broken doors and shattered windows. For years, people have wandered in and out of this house, taking what they pleased, leaving behind their mess, their shadows, their pain. You, the empath, have tried to keep the house in order, sweeping up the debris, patching the walls, always trying to make it a place of safety for others. But in the silent rebellion, something shifts. You see the house for what it is, your inner world, and you decide to rebuild it. You fix the doors, you clean the space, and you invite in only those who respect the sanctity of the place. This dream is not just a symbol, it is the blueprint for how your energy transforms. It is important to understand that this transformation is not about shutting out the world. It is about engaging with the world from a place of wholeness rather than depletion. When you are whole, your empathy becomes a powerful force. You can sense the truth beneath the surface of situations. You can offer compassion without losing yourself, and you can say no with a firmness that is both kind and unyielding. This is the paradox of the exhausted empath. By withdrawing from the patterns that drain them, they become capable of deeper, truer connection. But this shift does not happen overnight. It often comes after a breaking point, a moment when you feel you can no longer bear the weight of others' expectations. Perhaps someone betrayed your trust. Perhaps you realized that the people you were sacrificing for would never do the same for you. Or perhaps it was simply the slow accumulation of exhaustion that finally brought you to your knees. Whatever the trigger, the exhausted empath rises from this breaking point like a phoenix, reborn from ashes they never expected to carry. And this rebirth is not polite. It is raw, fierce, and unapologetic. You may find yourself speaking truths you once kept buried. You may feel anger, and that anger will shock you because it is not the kind of anger you have known before. It is not wild or destructive. It is clean, sharp, and precise. It is the anger that says, "I deserve to exist as I am. I deserve to be free." This is the voice of the self, the deepest part of the psyche asserting its right to live fully. Jung often spoke of the self as the organizing principle of the psyche, the center that holds all opposites together. For the empath, the self is often hidden beneath layers of personas. You have worn the mask of the caregiver, the listener, the peacekeeper. But these masks are not the whole of you. The silent rebellion tears them away, sometimes painfully, revealing the raw face of your authentic self. And once you see this face, you cannot go back. You cannot return to the days of pretending you are less than you are. This journey can feel lonely. Many will not understand it. They will accuse you of changing, of becoming distant or unkind. But the truth is that you are simply becoming real. You are no longer willing to participate in the subtle lies that relationships often demand. The lie that love means endless sacrifice, that being good means never saying no, that harmony is worth the price of your own soul. You see now that these are illusions, and the breaking of illusions always unsettles those who are still asleep. Dreams during this period may be intense. You may dream of storms, of tidal waves, of wild animals roaming free. These are not random images. They are messages from the unconscious, symbols of the power rising within you. The tidal wave is your emotional truth breaking through the walls you built to contain it. The wild animals are your instincts, long suppressed, demanding to be heard. Pay attention to these dreams. Write them down. Let them guide you, for they are the language of the soul. A spiritual initiation. The empath's silent rebellion is, in essence, a spiritual initiation. It is the crossing of a threshold from the world of unconscious giving to the world of conscious being. In this new world, you are not defined by how much you give or how much you endure. You are defined by your alignment with truth. And this truth is often simple but profound. You are worthy of the same compassion you offer to others. You are not here to save everyone. You are here to live fully, to embody your own light and shadow, to become a vessel for the deeper intelligence of the self. Do you feel the shift within you? The sense that something ancient is awakening, something that has waited patiently for you to grow tired of your own self-abandonment. It is as if a voice whispers from the depths of your soul, "Enough. Enough of being drained, enough of being unseen, enough of mistaking martyrdom for love." This voice is not angry. It is firm, steady, and undeniable. It is the voice of the silent rebellion, and once you hear it, you can never unhear it. This awakening often brings with it a strange clarity about the people in your life. You begin to see who truly values you and who simply values what you give them. This can be painful, for it may mean letting go of relationships that once defined you. But as you release what no longer serves you, you create space for something deeper and more authentic to enter. You begin to attract people who meet you at your level of truth, who do not fear your boundaries but respect them, who do not drain your light but reflect it back to you. In this way, the exhausted empath becomes a catalyst for transformation, not just for themselves, but for everyone they encounter. Your refusal to play the old roles forces others to confront their own shadows. Some will resist, some will walk away, but others will rise to meet you, inspired by your courage to live without apology. This is the ripple effect of your silent rebellion. By reclaiming yourself, you invite others to do the same. And yet, this power is not something you wield aggressively. It is quite subtle and profound. You do not need to prove anything. You do not need to argue or convince. Your energy, your presence, speaks louder than words. When you walk into a room, people feel it. They sense that you are no longer available for the games of the unconscious. You are anchored in something deeper, something they cannot name but instinctively respect. This anchoring is what Jung might call a union of opposites. You are both empath and warrior, both light and shadow, both giver and protector. You have learned to hold these opposites without splitting yourself apart. This is true power, not dominance over others, but mastery of your own inner world. When you reach this state, you are unshakable. The storms of life may come, but they cannot uproot you because your roots now run into the depths of your own soul. There is a moment when the exhausted empath no longer seeks to be understood because they have understood themselves. This is the final stage of the silent rebellion, the point where your energy no longer leaks into endless attempts to justify, explain, or prove your worth. You begin to live with a calm ferocity, a quiet confidence that is unshakable because it is not built on external validation. This inner stillness is like a deep lake, reflecting everything without distortion. Those who look into your eyes see their own reflection, and this can be both beautiful and terrifying, depending on how much of themselves they are willing to see. The silent rebellion is not a single moment. It is an ongoing dance between your past self and the self you are becoming. There will be days when you feel the pull of old patterns, when the urge to overgive, to over-explain, to absorb other people's pain will return like a familiar ghost. But now you recognize this ghost. You greet it not with submission, but with awareness. You say, "I see you. I understand why you are here, but I choose differently now." This act of conscious choice is the very essence of individuation, of becoming the architect of your own psyche rather than the servant of unconscious forces. The doorway to freedom. The world may resist this new you. Those who once relied on your endless patience and forgiveness may test your boundaries. They may provoke, manipulate, or attempt to guilt you back into the role you once played. But you will notice something remarkable. Their tactics no longer work. What once would have shattered you now barely grazes your surface. You have built an inner sanctuary, a place where your worth is not negotiable. This is what makes the exhausted empath dangerous, not to themselves, but to the illusions of others. You have learned that saying no is not an act of rejection, but an act of love. Love for yourself and love for the truth. Every no you speak carves out space for a more authentic yes, a yes to your dreams, your peace, your joy. For so long, you were conditioned to believe that saying no would make you unkind, unloved, or alone. But the silent rebellion teaches you that saying no is the doorway to freedom. It is the moment you stop betraying yourself to keep others comfortable. In this space of freedom, you begin to see the deeper patterns that shaped you. You remember the child you once were, the child who felt everything too much, who was told they were too sensitive, who learned to read the emotions of others like a survival instinct. That child became the empath, always scanning the room, always adjusting, always absorbing. But now you return to that child with love and compassion. You tell them, you were never too much. You were never wrong for feeling. You do not need to carry this weight anymore. And with that, something in you softens. The inner war ends. The empath and the shadow, once at odds, now walk side by side. This reconciliation brings with it a new kind of strength, a strength that is not hardened by bitterness, but softened by wisdom. You understand now that boundaries are not walls, they are doors. You open them for those who respect you and close them for those who do not. There is no anger in this, only clarity. It is the natural rhythm of a soul that has finally learned to honor itself. Jung once said, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are." For the empath, this means shedding the layers of false identity, the idea that you must always give, always sacrifice, always put others first to be worthy of love. You see now that your worth is not earned by what you do for others. It is intrinsic, eternal, and untouchable. The silent rebellion is simply the process of remembering this truth. You may find that your relationships change as you embody this truth. Some people will rise to meet you at this new level of authenticity. Others will fall away, unable to handle the clarity of your energy. Let this happen. Do not cling to what is trying to leave. Each departure is an opening, a space for something truer to enter. You do not need to chase, explain, or hold on. You are no longer living in scarcity. You know now that the universe mirrors your inner state, and when you live from a place of self-respect, you attract those who resonate with that frequency. This journey is not without its challenges. There will be moments of loneliness, moments when you question whether you are doing the right thing by stepping back, by refusing to play the old roles. But in these moments, return to your inner silence. Feel the strength of your own heartbeat. Remember that the path of individuation is not meant to be crowded. It is meant to lead you inward, to the depths of your own soul, where the true answers live. The exhausted empath becomes dangerous, not because they wish harm, but because they have stepped out of the collective trance. They no longer seek permission to exist, to feel, or to speak. They have broken free from the chains of expectation, and this freedom makes them unpredictable. You cannot manipulate someone who has nothing to prove. You cannot control someone who is no longer afraid of losing approval. This is the ultimate liberation. And in this liberation, something extraordinary happens. Your empathy deepens, but it is no longer tangled with suffering. You can sit with someone's pain without absorbing it. You can love without losing yourself. You can offer compassion from a place of overflow rather than depletion. This is what true empathy looks like. Not martyrdom, but the ability to hold space for both yourself and others without collapsing under the weight of it all. The empath as sage. The silent rebellion transforms the empath into a sage. You carry wisdom in your bones, a wisdom that was forged in the fires of exhaustion and rebirth. You understand the language of the shadow, the whispers of the unconscious, the symbols of dreams. You see that the world is not divided into good and bad, light and dark, but is a dance of both. And you no longer fear this dance. You move with it, knowing that every shadow you face, whether within yourself or in others, is an invitation to greater wholeness. Perhaps in your dreams you now see yourself standing at the center of a labyrinth. This labyrinth represents the psyche, with all its twists and turns, its dead ends and hidden doors. You realize that you have walked this labyrinth not just for yourself, but for everyone you have ever loved. And now at the center you find something unexpected, not emptiness, but a mirror. When you look into this mirror, you see your true face, the face you had before the world told you who you should be. And this face is radiant. It is both fierce and tender. It is both human and divine. This is the culmination of the silent rebellion, the realization that you were never broken, never weak, never too much. You were simply learning to remember who you are, and who you are is vast. You are the empath and the warrior, the healer and the rebel, the dreamer and the sage. You are not defined by the wounds you have carried, but by the light you have found within them. As you step forward into this new life, you no longer seek to avoid the shadow. You welcome it, knowing that it holds the keys to your deepest power. You understand that every emotion, even the ones you once feared, anger, grief, longing, are sacred messengers. You listen to them, learn from them, and let them guide you toward wholeness. You are no longer at war with yourself. You have become the bridge between your inner worlds, the alchemist who transforms pain into wisdom, shadow into light. And so the exhausted empath is dangerous because they have become free. They have broken the cycle of self-sacrifice, not by hardening their heart, but by opening it fully to themselves first, and then to the world. This kind of freedom cannot be controlled. It cannot be manipulated. It moves through life like a river, carving its own path, unstoppable and alive. If you are hearing these words, perhaps you are standing on the threshold of your own silent rebellion. Perhaps you feel that something within you is ready to rise, to break free from the roles that have kept you small. If so, listen closely. The voice within you is not calling for destruction, but for transformation. It is asking you to trust the power of your own silence, to stand in the truth of who you are without apology. This is your birthright, and no one can take it from you. Step forward then with courage. Let the world feel the depth of your presence, the strength of your boundaries, the clarity of your love. You are not here to carry everyone's pain. You are here to shine, to create, to live fully and freely. The silent rebellion is not the end of your empathy. It is its rebirth, its evolution into something so pure and powerful that it no longer needs recognition or reward. It simply is. And when you live from this place, you become a force of nature, a storm when necessary, a calm sea when it serves, a flame that burns away illusions, and a light that illuminates truth. This is the gift of the exhausted empath, the dangerous, beautiful gift of someone who has reclaimed their soul. You have learned that the greatest rebellion is not against the world, but against the part of yourself that forgot its own worth. You have discovered that true power lies not in controlling others, but in mastering your own energy. You have found that the deepest love is not self-sacrifice, but self-sovereignty. In the silence of your rebellion, you have found your voice. In the darkness of your descent, you have found your light. In the breaking of your old self, you have found your wholeness. And in this finding, you have become dangerous, not to those who love you truly, but to every illusion that ever told you that you were anything less than magnificent. The silent rebellion is complete. The empath has awakened, and the world will never be the same. Please like and subscribe, and write in the comments, "Complete if you have awakened."